Hey guys, welcome in. Sean Salisbury here. It is Unpaved on a Friday, and I'm sure it's storming where you are. If it's not, lucky you, because it's killing my golf game. My next guest will get on here in just a second after I introduce him. He and I, he's going to give me some strokes. We're on the golf course because he's shoring up his game. It doesn't shock me. He's better than I am. He spent 26 years as an NFL reporter for ESPN. Obviously, him and I, 12 of those, I was there, and Ed was there with me, or I was there with him, should I say. Covers the Cowboys since 1989. He's been honored by the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's an insider for WFAA TV in Dallas. Covers the Cowboys and also on the host Doomsday. We got a lot to talk about. And as Chris Berman would say, it's a special Thursday night edition. Ed Werder has more. Let's join by what I would consider a Hall of Fame reporter. Ed Werder, true journalist, something we lack these days, joins us now here on Unpaved. Easy Ed, man. It's great to have you on, brother. Thanks for carving out some time on a Friday. If it's raining in Dallas like it is in Houston, you ain't playing golf today, brother.
It's not. It's just kind of steamy, but it's not 100. We've only had, I think, 400-degree days. So I've been able to play quite a bit this year between here and Colorado, and I've enjoyed my time on the course. And I'll always fondly remember our times together in various green rooms and makeup rooms and I guess we did the Pro Bowl together a couple times.
We've been to the Hall of Fame a bunch of times too. We should have. The Pro Bowl's the one, brother. That, if anything at ESPN, aside from some good people, I missed that trip. That was the reward, right?
Watching Steve Young eat hula pie. Yeah,
that's right. That's exactly right. Well, Ed Werder joins us. Ed, it's great to have you on. I know it's Dallas. It's Jerry. It's this time of year. They got to be in the news. Let's start with the elephant in the room. I contend, Ed, that the Micah Parsons, Jerry Jones thing, while it's theater for Jerry, Micah wants his money, it will get done. How close are we right now?
Well, the problem in this case, I think most people are aware of the history with the recent Dak negotiations last year that went right up until game day. He's about to get on the bus to go to the game. I mean, Jerry would have taken any longer on that deal. Mike McCarthy would have had to call a timeout in the first quarter and let Jerry and Dak get together on the sidelines in Cleveland and sign that deal. We know CeeDee Lamb missed all the training camp last year. Zach Martin before that. Ezekiel Elliott, held out and signed 4 days before the season opener. So the Cowboys have a history of delaying these signings. The difference here, I think, is, Sean, there hasn't been a negotiation. There's been no conversation since March between Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones and Micah's agent, David Mulugeta, who's one of the best in the business, has done over $1 billion worth of NFL contracts. So that, to me, is the thing that keeps you from saying, yeah, this is going to get done like all the others have, and he's going to be on the field week 1 in 13 days in Philadelphia when the Cowboys open the NFL season against the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles. I'm not sure about that. I think, like Brian Schottenheimer said, I think Micah Parsons is going to play in the game. I don't know if he's going to have a new deal or not. Jerry's got all the leverage here because he's got him under contract for a 5th year as a first-round draft pick, and he can use the franchise tag or threaten to use the franchise tag for 2 more years after that. But let's be honest, that's not without issue for the Cowboys. I mean, that would interfere with their ability to threaten DeRon Bland with it, to threaten George Pickens, Tyler Smith. So I think it's a very complicated thing. It seems to have gotten very personal, which most general managers don't let contract negotiations get personal. This one, like the Dak Prescott contract, seems to be have become very personal.
Can they compartmentalize, Ed, Micah, Jerry, the whole thing, that when football starts and the contract's done, is it like, hey, like an arbitrator, when you go in there, I want this, and everybody hugs or contract and everything's going to be fine? Or are these ill feelings Micah's way and Mulugeta's way is it going to be bothersome, or does money fix all?
I think money, if this thing gets resolved ultimately amicably and fairly in Micah's mind, then I don't think it becomes a long-term issue. I mean, I remember being in the locker room at the end of last season when he talked about, hey, I don't need to make, $40 million. I don't need to be the highest paid non-quarterback in football. Sign me early. Let's create some room to, keep some of these teammates of mine. I don't want to be out here getting double teamed my whole career, and I want to win championships. And he talked about being a one-team player and having a legacy with the Cowboys being important to him. Well, remember the night he got drafted, he was wearing a blue suit praying to God he got drafted by the Cowboys. So while he says he wants to be traded, I ultimately don't think that's what he wants.
Ed, you mentioned, to go back a step here, that they haven't talked Mulugeta, Jerry Jones, Micah Parsons, that group since March, other than Micah carrying on the conversations on the field. We're talking about contract-wise. Why?
Because in March, when Jerry met with Micah Parsons, he emerged from that meeting believing he and the player had directly agreed on term, on guaranteed money, on salary, the whole thing. And Micah felt like he went in to talk to Jerry about leadership, because Jerry has made, leadership an issue in this negotiation. If I'm going to invest this much money in a player, he's got to give me more than what it is on the field. He's got to be a leader in his position group, on his side of the ball, within the whole team. And then ultimately, I think Micah thought from there the conversation would take place between Jerry and Steven and their contract negotiator and his agent, David Mulugeta. And instead, Jerry decided, we have a deal. I've negotiated a deal directly with my player. That's my right as an owner. I've done this before. He used Michael Irvin as an example when he was on Irvin's show yesterday. And Irvin admitted he basically agreed to a contract deal that got finalized between him and Jerry. But that's not the way this has gone. And so from what I'm told, effectively, the Cowboys' only communication with David Mulugeta was, this is a take it or leave it offer. This is what Jerry and Micah negotiated. We expect this to be honored. Take it or leave it. Obviously, he turned it down, and now there have been no conversations since March between the principal people involved in this deal.
Ed, I mean, I not only your sources, but I trust you as much as any reporter that I've ever visited with or talked to. And anytime you come on, what you say is, I've held that in the highest regard. So you mentioned that we've seen Jerry and Michael about how much the offer, and he felt it was fair and make him the top paid player at his position. How close is that? Do we have an idea what the exact terms are as far as base and bonus and guaranteed?
The only sense we have of that was Jerry saying that he offered to make him the highest paid non-quarterback in football. I assume that was in March. And in March, the highest paid non-quarterback in football was Jamar Chase,
right?
At around $40 million. And that's like, we know what the market is for Micah Parsons. It's been established this offseason. 4 edge rushers have signed the most lucrative deals for that position group in the entire NFL.
It was one after the other, right?
It's with TJ Watt most recently, Max Crosby, Danielle Hunter. And so, we should know where Micah Parsons fits in all that. And to your earlier question, I don't know if I answered it fully. Can they get past this and reconcile? Yeah, but aren't we already to the point where 13 days from now, Micah is not going to be on an unlimited snap count. Micah is not going to be physically ready to play every snap in an NFL game as a pass rusher in the opener against Philly. So the Cowboys are already compromising themselves on the field in Brian Schottenheimer's very first season as an NFL head coach. And Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb at the beginning of training camp talked about how nauseated they are by the fact that every year they go to camp and it's never just all about football. It's got to be about some player's contract or something else. And in this case, it's about another player's contract and all of the attention Jerry's derived from, the Netflix documentary.
Ed, you've been around that franchise for 3 decades or plus. And I love Jerry, the marketer. And Jerry's a fun guy. I love him. I don't think Jerry's a great GM. I think his ego and pride get in the way, and that's okay. He's an expert at what he's good at. He's the most powerful owner in the business, or any business for that matter. And when he talks, and he's stubborn as hell, but that's okay. That's part of what makes him great. But with that in mind, and Jerry's stubbornness and his marketing, is his ego as the owner and a football guy that thinks he's got all the answers, does it get in the way? And does he crave this? I think he's kind of admitted as such, right? If they're not in the news every day, is this kind of the plan at this time of year all the time?
To me, it's so interesting, and it speaks to the unique brand that the Cowboys are, that, first of all, they're doing a documentary on Jerry Jones, a legacy, 8 episodes. They haven't won anything in 30 years.
Right.
And
mid-90s, right, Ed? What was it, 96?
95 season.
95,
yeah. With Barry Switzer. But Jerry's talked about, I think you'd agree with the fact that most owners and most coaches and general managers, the first thing they want is to eliminate distractions. They want a healthy roster and they want to eliminate distractions. And here's Jerry saying just the opposite. Hey, when it gets quiet, I know how to stir it up, and I do. And he does know how to create attention. He always has. And I think when you watch the documentary, if you do, because a lot of people are so passionate about their hate for Jerry Jones at this point that they're refusing to watch it. But there's that curiosity factor, I think, ultimately overwhelms most people. But it's clear that all this time later, that's still what drives him. He's still driven by the fact that Jimmy doesn't ever give him credit for creating the environment for those teams to win 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. So yeah, he's definitely still motivated by that. Isn't it interesting that, all this time later, he finally inducts Jimmy into the Ring of Honor belatedly, and he's still miffed about the fact that Jimmy won't give him credit for the Herschel Walker trade, and Jimmy's still angry that Jerry, said 500 coaches could coach his football team and win with the way it was structured. So it's petty, it's unnecessary, and it's really counterproductive.
Yeah, well, 500 coaches may be able to coach it close with Aikman and Irvin and that offensive line at Emmitt Smith, but not like Jimmy did. And I think we all know that. Will he ever, I'm going to get back to the team in a second, but will Jerry, Ed, in your mind, as long as he's alive and knowing that he's going to live till he's like 170, you and I both know this, will he ever allow somebody else to be, not just Steven, but I'm talking about even outside the family, like an Aikman, somebody like that, run this football program, or is he going to do this till he dies?
No, and I think Aikman would have been a great choice, and
Agreed.
I think Troy at various points in his career had interest in doing that. I think that's off the table now. I don't think that's part of Troy's long-term plan any longer. And Jerry's been very emphatic about the fact that he bought the team largely to have this job. Like, he knew nobody was ever going to hire him to be a general manager. And certainly nobody would hire him after 30 years of futility now. But he thinks he does it as well as anybody in football. And he told us after the last regular season game, when we were talking about whether Mike McCarthy was going to come back, he said, people said to me at the time, did you buy this franchise as an investment for your children? And he said, no, I bought it for me to have an employment opportunity.
Yeah, and he had plenty of money before he bought it, right?
Yeah,
he's got plenty more now.
And on the business side, he's done an incredible job for the league. That's why he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Right. He doesn't have a gold jacket because of what he's done as a general manager. He has a gold jacket because of the way he changed the league in terms of how it viewed its ability to generate revenue from stadiums and how, taking on new partnerships with the television partners and so forth, and the marketing and all that. So he's brilliant in that regard, but he's got a huge blind spot, and not getting football credit is it.
And why, and this may come off as disrespectful, and I don't mean it, because you know how much respect I have for how hard it is to win and coach and play in the league and to cover it. It's tough. And if you're covering the Cowboys, it's always something. But Brian Schottenheimer, good coach, coordinator, we're going to see him what it looks like as head coach. Names that have come through that have talked about being interviewed, but from Dave Campo, we know the names. I don't need Jason Garrett. Respect and really good, not only legacy guys that have had their pops coach or be involved, but never that guy since Jimmy Parcells for a minute, and that didn't last forever.
Unique circumstances, yeah.
Well, what's that? Yeah,
Parcells was hired under unique circumstances. Jerry trying to get the stadium done.
Right. So will there ever be a guy who could challenge, that would, like a Dion, when he would people that banter, which wasn't going to happen. But will there ever be a guy, a big name, successful coach that Jerry gives the job to? Or will it always be somebody that he can control?
It's always going to be somebody he feels comfortable with, who's familiar to him, who he views as collaborative in nature. And, you mentioned Dave Campo and Jason Garrett, and Brian Schottenheimer joins those two as the third coach in Cowboys history who's been promoted from within.
Right.
Now, I would say this about Schottenheimer. He's deserving of the opportunity after all the time he spent as a coordinator and as an offensive coach. But it's interesting that his time really, he hasn't been interviewed for a head coaching job in a very long time. He hadn't called plays in 5 years. And now he's got this Cowboys head coaching job. It's his first head coaching job ever, and he's got a second job now as a play caller for Dak Prescott that he has never had in Dallas. So he's taken on a lot, and the Cowboys have had some first-year head coaches who have, I think, 4 of them who have made the playoffs their first season. But it wasn't Jason Garrett and it wasn't Dave Campo. And it's interesting to me that, like Jerry as a general manager, Schottenheimer didn't get any recent interviews to be a head coach. The Cowboys only interviewed 4 people, most of those just to meet the NFL's, hiring requirements. And then they hired Schottenheimer. But I would say this for Schottenheimer. Like, if you want to run the football, and if you want Dak under center, like Matthew Stafford.
It's a Kyle Shanahan. It's
right.
That group of
Sean
guys.
McVay, Kyle Shanahan type of offense. You want your quarterback under center. You want to play the play action passing game. McCarthy's not your guy. But Schottenheimer is. Schottenheimer, that's what he does. And he's led the NFL in rushing, once with the Jets and once with Seattle. That's the way he likes to play. Does he have the personnel to do that? That remains to be determined. And they play in a very tough division. Oh, and they also have to play the NFC North and the AFC West, 2 divisions that sent 3 teams to the playoffs last year.
Ed, you mentioned personnel. We know when the Cowboys are at their best, dominate the line of scrimmage, run the football, play action, and a good quarterback. I'm curious about, or you mentioned the personnel. How good are they? What if the Washington, Commanders play their best and Philadelphia plays their best and Dallas plays their best? They all have an out-of-body experience this year. Where do the Cowboys finish?
Well, this is probably one of the few times in Dak Prescott's 10-year career as a starter that the Cowboys begin the season viewed as the 3rd best team in their division based on what happened last year.
Right.
They got annihilated by the Eagles twice by a record proportion. Now, Dak didn't play in either game, and they split with Washington. But Washington and the Eagles went to the NFC Championship game, a place the Cowboys haven't been in 30 years. So history tells us that when Dak is healthy for most of the season, the Cowboys win and they're competitive in their division and they make the playoffs. The question is, at 32 years old and having missed significant time 2 of the last 5 seasons with leg injuries, what are we going to see from Dak Prescott? Is he going to be mobile enough to escape the pocket, avoid the rush, extend plays? All of those things are essential to the way he's played. He's no longer a dual threat quarterback, but he still has to have that mobility. Now, it's interesting to me that last year at this time, Jerry Jones basically said, hey, Dak's the highest paid player in football. He's going to have to do more with less. Okay? They did nothing last year to support Mike McCarthy in his last year. They have invested in Brian Schottenheimer, and they've invested in Dak. Like, they used their first-round draft choice on Tyler Booker, a starting offensive lineman. And they got him a second receiver that he's lacked too often in George Pickens. So they're a more dynamic team, I think, potentially offensively. They have more speed. They have more playmakers. But how is Booker going to hold up in his first year as a starter? How is Cooper Beebe going to progress in his second year as a starting center? Tyler Guyton's missed all of training camp after he was a complete failure as a first-round draft pick last year at left tackle. And with Micah, who knows? Defensively, they're a bad team last year.
I was about to say, with him, they're not very good. How are they going to be if he is not? It'd take a while to get in shape and football shape, even if he does show up without a new contract. How good that defense doesn't look like it can withstand the punishment with the other 2 good quarterbacks in the division, and who knows what the Giants are going to be like offensively.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at this roster right now, you'd say the questions are backup quarterback, because Joe Milton's played so poorly, and they've needed their backup quarterback to win games for them 4 of the last 5 years. So I think running back is certainly a question. They didn't use a high draft pick there. They didn't sign anybody who's a priority free agent. Javonte Williams is right now the starter. Jaden Blue, they took in the 5th round, who is a speed back, a passing game guy. And then at cornerback, they're going to, they're somewhat injury decimated. Siobhan Ravel, Trayvon Diggs, Kalen Carson, probably all going to be out injured at the start of the season. So that's a huge question. And then defensive tackle. And they open up against a team that's the best running team in all of football, has a running quarterback on the road.
Right.
So, yeah, it's going to be a real challenge for them to get off to a good start. And then, they have to start fast because the back end of their schedule is ridiculous. They play 4 14-win teams last year, which has never happened in the history of the NFL. So
Right.
they gotta win early.
A couple more minutes with Ed Werder. Ed, and it's probably unfair to anybody, but I've always been an Aikman guy, and he's my era type of guy, right? And we see in the documentary people that didn't know that it's this pretty boy quarterback broadcaster that they're, and I mean this affectionately. If you want a prick that takes care of business on the sidelines and in a game, Troy Zay, not afraid to dress him down. That's not the only reason he's successful. I think he's the most, for a guy who's in the Hall of Fame, just the way we cover him, meaning nationally, we don't put him in the top 5 or 10 guys. I think he's as underrated as any quarterback we've ever had, but that's that. But looking at the leadership Jerry wants, and I think Dak's a good guy, and I think he's a really good player. But they're lacking some of that grab you around the throat, I think, and not literally, but figuratively, is, well, when I say Dak Prescott, you're the general manager, you're the coach. Describe him. What are you getting out of it?
I think he's got a tremendous work ethic. I think he's totally committed to being the best he can be. He wants to be coached hard. They view him as an exceptional leader, and when you talk to his teammates, that's how they characterize him as well.
Right.
I mean, I thought it was interesting when we interviewed Matt Eberflus for our Doomsday podcast. He said one of the 3 things that caused him to come back to Dallas and be the defensive coordinator was Dak Prescott. Like, his faith in him from the experience he had in 2016 and early in Dak's career was a factor in his willingness to take this job. So I don't think Dak is lacking in any of those phases.
Is he a Super Bowl quarterback physically? I mean, you mentioned the woes. He's not a two-dimensional. Do you believe he's a February guy if they put the right pieces around him?
I mean, we haven't seen him do that. We've rarely seen them elevate his performance in the postseason, and really that goes for any of these guys. And when I watch the Netflix documentary and I see Aikman and Irvin and Dion and Eric Williams and Emmett and Darren Woodson, those guys, they were at their absolute best in the games that carried the greatest consequence against the best opponents in the biggest moments. Like, those guys were all at their best, and we haven't seen any members of this team do that.
What's your proudest moment in your career?
I think being recognized by the Pro Football Hall of Fame for the totality of my, coverage over 30 years. I said in my speech that, I knew early on in my life what I wanted to do, and that in some way I wanted to be involved in covering pro sports and particularly football. And, I was in the Sears catalog, with my Christmas list. I want these, Packers pajamas, and I want this Dolphins sweatshirt and this hoodie. And so to then be honored in that environment and to have your name at all found anywhere on the premises was a source of incredible pride. In terms of breaking stories, I think it's the one that was detailed in the Netflix documentary, which was the Jerry Jimmy breakup, and being directly involved in that story because Jerry grabbed me by the pants leg and told me not to leave a bar because I was going to miss the story of the year. And the story of the year was he was going to fire that blankety blank. I say it in the documentary, by the way. I use the profanity. I'm forced.
And you're not a cusser, Barry. You're not a cusser.
No. I forbid it on social media. I block people for using it. But in this case, and I tried to avoid it here, but the producers really pushed me. And ultimately I decided, well, I am trying to directly quote Jerry in the moment. And so that's why I ultimately relented. So that would be my greatest achievement in terms of a story I covered, because it wasn't just that one day. It was like 10 days, and it ended up with Jimmy leaving and Barry Switzer being hired. So it was something that had never happened before in the NFL, a coach leaving an organization after winning back-to-back Super Bowls, and it hasn't happened since. So that was my proudest moment. But being recognized by the Pro Football Writers and the Pro Football Hall of Fame is kind of long-lasting and enduring honor.
Yeah, more than well deserved. One of the best ever doing it has been you, and reliable and consistent, but also spot on as a journalist. All right, just a couple more questions. I'll get you out of here. Do you remember your most intriguing, or forget not Jerry, but in interviewing players or being around him, whether it's nervous or your most wow factor moment when you interviewed a player, or something, maybe intimidating moment, when you first broke in, that one that had you the most, wow, this is happening right now, outside of the Jerry Jimmy thing?
Well, I covered Brett Favre, for a lot of his career.
Oh, you sure did.
And Drew Brees.
You on Favre forever, brother. That's for sure.
Drew Brees, when he won the Super Bowl, after that moment, I thought that was incredible. But yeah, breaking that Favre was going to force his way back into the Packers building, was leaving Mississippi where I was reporting live and going to get on a plane and go up and try to force his way back onto the Packers roster, even after the coaches and the organization committed Aaron Rodgers. That was a big moment. Being threatened with death by Tank Johnson in the Cowboys locker room, a hostile Cowboys locker room, after I reported that the Cowboys had come to the conclusion that Terrell Owens was a toxic figure, and they were going to consider releasing him after the season was over, even though he's one of their best players and carried a huge salary cap hit. That was kind of wow, this is really a serious job covering the NFL when players are threatening to send killers over to your house.
Right. What's the one thing? Is there something that you still like to accomplish, or something that, not a regret, but something that you haven't reached that goal yet in this industry?
Well, that's a great question. I've had an opportunity to do, I've covered like 30 Super Bowls. I've even after I left ESPN and I was on the field for Westwood One, I'd never covered a Super Bowl as the game was being played on the field until I did those 2 games for Westwood. So that was a unique experience. There's really nothing specifically I want to accomplish, but I just I wanted to work for ESPN for a couple more years. I love what I do. I still think I'm good at what I do.
Oh, you are.
But I need it to be done a certain way. Like you've kind of suggested, like journalism and ethics and honesty and truth and accuracy are important to me, and I don't think that's the way it is everywhere anymore.
Okay, when you watch them, and I did 12 years, and I love great people. I love it. Sometimes the exit isn't what you want, and you and I both, and for different reasons. But with that in mind, when you turn on and watch the countdowns, it's not even just the way they go about it. Do you watch it the same as you used to when you're watching your former employer?
I'm sure I watch it a little more critically now than I did when I was a part of it. And I heard a lot of what was going on in the show when I was on or when I was about to be on, so I had a sense without watching it when it happened. I miss it. Like,
yeah, I get it.
When I walk into a bar and somebody else is covering something that I would have been covering, it hurts,
Sure.
and probably always will. That being said, I've succeeded beyond my own expectations when I began, and I'm humbled for all of the great opportunities I've had. I never envisioned even when I was at the Dallas Morning News, breaking news, I never expected to be hired in television and to work 26 years, at ESPN covering every week one of the best games in the league. So that's been a true honor. But yeah, it's still a little bit painful at times.
Who's in the Super Bowl in your mind this year? Do you have any? Have you thought about that much?
Not really. It's obviously been dominated by Kansas City, but I think Buffalo has got a great shot. I think the Ravens, have a great shot, as they always do. I think the Rams are a Super Bowl caliber team.
Got to get Stafford right.
Right,
yeah.
and you worry about the back. I mean, that's what forced Aikman out of the game ultimately, and that makes him a week-to-week proposition. And nobody else in that offense is close to him in terms of what he's capable of doing. So I think the Rams are an interesting team. I think the Packers are a potentially interesting team, especially if they can get a pass rusher, whether it's Trey Hendrickson or develop somebody on their own. So I would look at those teams as being the dominant teams in football this year.
Last question. What will we be saying about the Dallas Cowboys on January 1st? And I'm talking about Micah, Jerry, Scott, the overall picture when you and I are sitting in a bar or playing golf. What will the national narrative be about the Cowboys when the season's over?
I think it'll probably be questions about whether Jerry will make a coaching change after, he's never done a one and done before. He fired Chan Gailey after 2 years and has always said he regrets that he didn't give him a third year. But I think given, that he has never been a head coach in the NFL, if things don't go well, Jerry's not going to take the blame. Dak's probably not going to be to blame unless, they won't lose if he's healthy, in my opinion. So I think it comes down to, the controversy will be about the Brian Schottenheimer hire and whether Jerry sticks with it.
And inevitably, Parsons gets the contract, Ed?
Inevitably, Parsons is going to be playing in Dallas this year if
Right.
he plays at all. I really can't see a guy who says, hey, I can't hold out a training camp like CeeDee Lamb did because I need to be around my guys and I love the game too much. All of a sudden, 2 months later saying, go ahead, open in Philadelphia without me, and I'm going to miss a $1.5 million game check. I just don't see that happening.
I've always said players, when they get to, for the most part, some do, but for the most part, don't have the stones to miss that kind of paycheck, because when it's gone, it's gone. And you may make a lot, but it's hard to make up a $1.5 paycheck per week or per 2 weeks. Hard to do, brother.
Exactly.
Where can we find the Doomsday Podcast? Let them know.
You can find it on Spotify. We do it on YouTube, Apple Podcasts. So we do one once the season starts. We do one immediately after every game, so it's always posted, within hours after the Cowboys finish their game that week.
And I can tell you're going to get honest, great stuff, and it's a great podcast. And nobody has covered it for the last 30 years like Ed Werder, a great teammate, great friend. And now that I'm pissed that I know his handicap's lower than mine, it's time to go to work, even when it is rated. Ed, let's do this again, brother. I'd love to have you on.
Sounds good.
It's great. And you're the perfect timing and the perfect guy to give us the honest and journalistic insight from the background and to now, heading into the season, because there's no other place I'd rather get it than from you, especially when it's the Dallas Cowboys. Great stuff, brother. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Sean. Anytime. Let me know.
You too, man. Thanks, Ed. That's a great Ed Werder. Been honored by the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I truly think if you're talking about reporters that do it right, nobody has done it better. In my opinion. And when he was the go-to when I was at ESPN, when we're throwing it down to him, it was always, and we used to joke about it, all of us, whether it's myself and Van Pelt and all of us, it's Ed Werder has more. Well, he always had more, and his more was always spot on, and he never backed down from. And one great thing about Ed, whether it's on Twitter, great follow, he does not back down, and he's got some great sarcastic comebacks that are subtle, but a Mike Tyson right to the face without being a Mike Tyson right to the face. But he is a pro, and his peers know it. Honestly, when he says it, it's rare that it's that the source, and the source a lot of times is him, and he is phenomenal when it comes to his reporting, as good as there is. And I've always said he's a Hall of Fame reporter. As we wind up, guys, on a Friday, I asked this question. We will, on Monday, as the preseason ends, we're going to hit Monday and next week hard. Okay, with the weekend between, as we get ready for the Thursday night NFL game, would we come out of preseason with, and we're going forward? I think one of them, real quick, is what are the Giants going to do? Let's just stay in the division. So much to cover, but what are the Giants going to do? I was asked this yesterday on a show in Connecticut, my guy Rob Dibble's show, about the Giants and Jackson Dart. And, that whole Russ Wilson, Jackson Dart thing, what are they going to do? Now, here's the interesting thing. I said I think Russ Wilson starts, but it'll be up to Russ Wilson whether he's going to keep it or not. And here's why, you want to find out as a veteran, is Russ Wilson still got some of that Seattle magic in him? Now, I know through Denver and Pittsburgh, he had, a few splashes of it, but it hasn't been consistent. The question is, who will Russ Wilson be with New York? Now, Brian Daboll, if they win 4 games, Brian Daboll, I don't think he's going to keep his job, but Brian Daboll is a good football coach. So in collaboration with the front office and ownership and Brian Daboll, you are going to run out there. If you're Brian Daboll, you beg, borrow, cheat, and steal for who is the best quarterback. I can tell you right now, the most gifted one in my mind on that team, Jameis is the best pure thrower. Russ Wilson's the most experienced. But when it comes down to dynamic talent, it's this cat, Jackson Dart. But are you ready? And it seems like he's got a personality to handle the media in New York. And I love his grind. You saw him in a preseason game, get hit around, had to go into the tent, wanted him to speed it up. Here we are in a third preseason. The dude wants to play. And that body language tells me the dude's ready to compete. Now, is he ready to win in a very, very difficult division that's got some extreme talent and some defenses that will knock you around? But I'm just anxious to see what their decision is. I think it's going to go Russ Wilson, Jameis Winston, Jackson Dart. If Russ Wilson falls and doesn't play well, I think they'll leapfrog Jameis Winston to Jackson Dart, but Jameis will always be the backup. And I do on this team. Now, he may spot, like if he gets hurt in a game, he may throw Jameis in there to win a game because I love his personality. I've grown to love Jameis Winston even more, the teammate he's become. But there's a reason the Giants drafted Jackson Dart. Because if you're the Giants and Brian Dable, why would you have, when you're in a hot seat, wondering what you're going to do in 2026 if you're going to be around for the job, to give your insight? I know it's a GM and ownership deal, but you do consult with the coach and the scouting department. Why would you take a quarterback that high if you didn't intend on letting him compete? Well, he's competed his ass off. And of all these young rookie quarterbacks, the best preseason's been him. He's dynamic. The question is, what do the Giants do? I say you play Russ Wilson. If he plays his way out of it, you got two guys behind him and a young guy that can come in and be the, oh, look at this bolt of vitamin B12. And if he does play well, then we went out and got a guy in the offseason, a veteran, and refound and reinvented himself to go. And there's their 53-man roster deadline. The names on there that more than likely are not going to make a difference. And the Giants are an underrated talent team. The question is, will they get production in the right places and stay healthy in a division that's got three really, really good quarterbacks? I mean, with Dak and Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels is pretty damn good. So with that, while it's not the biggest story of the preseason, it's New York and it's going to become one. I think one of the sneaks. So I'm anxious to see. I don't think Jackson Dart opens, but the window, if they start out 1-2, 1-3, they're going to play him because you're going to look for that. Wow, how do we get this? Because I think Jackson Dart does give you more energy than Russ Wilson does at this stage of his career, just not more experience. Now, one other thing that we had to hit on it for a second. The Rams are a Super Bowl team. Can Matt Stafford's back hold up? If it does, they're going to compete. And the one team that, and we know that Stafford's a damn good player and he's a Hall of Famer, but it's a significant drop off from him to the next guy, as it is with Burrow, as it is with Mahomes. And the team in that division, we are not discussing much. And every year we do discuss them a lot is what's going to happen with the 49ers? Who's Brock Purdy this year? They've always been talented. What's the next level at wide receiver? Made a trade with the Kansas City Chiefs. They're trying to upgrade their wide receiver personnel. So what in the world does San Francisco look like November? I've always had a great feel for the 49ers, always. This is the first time, and I don't know how many years, that going into it, I'm like, I don't know, man. Even whether it was Garoppolo playing, it didn't matter. I've always had a great feel for them. And I'm just curious. I don't know. I don't know, running the football. Kyle Shanahan will always have a significant run game in the running back. We know that. They'll be committed to that. But where's the personnel on the edge and contracts and coming off injuries and, the George Kittle dominating and being a big part of the pass game and defensively? I'm really intrigued with the San Francisco 49ers. And we'll get all our predictions in as we go forth. Not only on this show, but give them all our picks, our MVP of the year and all that. But you got a great feel for the Dallas Cowboys. To back Ed up on this, I don't think the Dallas Cowboys defense is very good. And I still got questions about their offensive line. Micah Parsons obviously makes them better. You guys heard me on the show from day one. Micah Parsons is going to get paid. I don't know when the contract is, but he is not going to play somewhere else this year. Regardless of what he says, just from it, you just can't do that. And Jerry loves this attention. He doesn't have a problem with all this. He's the boss. He has the leverage, and he can very easily franchise tag Micah Parsons next year. He can easily take care of that and do it. But I can tell you this, you kind of want a little peace and happiness, but Jerry kind of likes chaos and unpaved roads, to name our show. He just does. In the end, he wants to go with it. So all you people that wonder, well, what's Jerry going to do? Is he ever going to change and let somebody else run the organization? The answer is no. So you're going to have to deal with it. So the players you're just going to have to deal with it. You're not getting Jerry he loves that more than money. And Jerry's made a lot. Think about that. Jerry loves being the football guy more than he does being if you said, Jerry, you want to go in as a personnel guy or you want to go in as an owner, which he's already in the Hall of Fame, as Ed mentioned. Ed's right. He's in there as the owner, not as a personnel guy. If you said, would you like to switch? I think Jerry would say, absolutely. If you put me in there as a personnel guy taking care of football decisions, I wholeheartedly think Jerry would say, oh, pull me off the owner's tag to go into the Hall of Fame and put me in, if I could switch that and say, oh, the best personnel guy the Cowboys have ever seen. Any of that, I think he would. I love Jerry Jones. I do. I think he's a phenomenal marketer and a brilliant mind. But once again, Jerry's pride gets in the way. As far as this goes, and the Eric Dickerson source, and ED is one of my favorite people. We need to get him on. I don't know who Eric's source is, and I don't know what his who he's talking to. When Eric Dickerson yesterday had said he went on a show with I believe it was Rodney Pete and with Rodney Pete and Fred Rogan in Los Angeles. My guy Rodney and Fred, both of them. Hell, Fred Rogan was my boys club basketball coach in Arizona when I was like 10 or 11 years old. And Rodney, obviously a teammate. But when Eric said somebody in the league told him that when it came to Shedeur Sanders, that the league all collabed to say, don't draft him. Now, I trust my guy, Eric Dickerson. I don't know who the source is, but I find it hard to believe. I'm not questioning Eric. Eric's just the messenger and a hell of a player and a hell of a good friend. But I do got to question the fact that I have a hard – now, I don't put it past the owners. Don't misunderstand me. To bullshit their way and collab. Billionaires, they know how to cut corners. They know how to they know how to do a lot of stuff, that a lot of it good and some of it I'm quite sure shady that we've known in the past. Daniel Snyder, we've seen these movies before. But for a whole league, if you loved Shedeur Sanders, loved him as a quarterback, I don't think many of us thought he was a first-round talent, but I think some of us thought he'd be drafted before where he was drafted. But with that, I have a hard time believing, not Eric, but whoever the source is, that whoever told the source this, and he said he heard it from a reliable source, so all I can do is trust ED what he's saying. But I have a hard time believing in my mind that 32 owners got together and said, don't touch him. Don't you draft him. Because if you loved him, I would say, screw you. This guy's going to be a franchise changer. You 31 could kiss my lily white ass. I'm drafted him. Right? The answer is, what was it? Was it talent? And I think Albert Breer was on Dan Patrick's show, and Albert's really good too, say he didn't get drafted in the first round because of his football skill. He didn't get drafted after that because of all the other stuff. And I think a lot of us, I just have a hard time thinking, hey, man, Mr. Kraft, this is a Rooney family. Don't draft Shedeur. Cool. Should we get in this is like the phone thing. You call him, somewhere along the line, translation gets lost. Like I said, I don't doubt my guy Eric Dickerson one bit, but whoever his source is, I just have a hard time figuring out how 32 guys, oh, yeah, let's call Jerry, no Shedeur, even though you love Deion. Okay, cool. We don't draft the first round. You start to go around and think about the name. If you're trying to save your team and you think Shedeur Sanders can save in it, why wouldn't you draft him? And I know that there's some baggage and stuff, but really, he's not a bad kid, man. He's young and he's been around money his whole life and he does things with a flair. He's not a bad kid. He's a good kid. I root for his success, but I have a hard. If you called me and I was on, what you tell me? If he's a number 3 quarterback or 2 quarterback on my board, I'm drafting him. You're not talking me out of this. Are you guys idiotic? Plus, you take the risk that one of them goes behind and goes to the commission and says, hey, you know what? You got a bunch of owners trying to collude on Shedeur Sanders, and they're doing this. Unless the owner's in on it or the commissioner's in on it, which I doubt, because the commissioner, while he does work for the owners, he's the commissioner, but the owners pay that big $50 million or whatever his salary a year. So I just have a hard time as I dig deep into this, the 32 owners, if you loved Shedeur Sanders, even if there was one of them that would say, yeah, I got you, man. And then if you passed on him in the first round, wouldn't touch him somewhere else. Like I said, my guy, Eric, I love him and I believe in him, but whoever told him that, or whoever told his source that, it's hard for me to fathom after covering this and being in it for 30, 40 years that we can wake up and say that 32 owners are telling you not to draft a kid, especially with the pop that Deion's got in this league and with the insiders that he knows that he could find out this answer. It seems awfully dirty that somebody would do that. And I'm not putting it by the owners to do dirty stuff, but I don't believe in my heart that 32 cats got on the phone, because half those owners, they don't all like each other. No, they'll MF each other behind. They wouldn't pee on you if you were on fire. They're fellow owners. Some love each other, but not the collusion part of the Shedeur Sanders thing. Collusion, sure, it exists, but on the Shedeur Sanders thing, I just don't think Shedeur Sanders was going to get picked in the first round anyway. I didn't think he was a first round talent, but I think the kid's got a chance to be a player, or whatever that means, to stay in the league, get a chance. But a first rounder, I wouldn't have taken him in the first round. And I said as such for many months. But collusion on 32 owners saying, don't draft the kid. And then what, Cleveland just wake up saying, oh, screw you, we're going to do it later on. After they drafted somebody and after you were told, because they would have had an easy out. Oh, we drafted Dylan Gabriel. We're not drafting him. So where'd they feel that pressure from if they felt it? Well, either they thought he was a player. Yeah, it's hard time believing that 32 owners would say, don't draft him. Now, if all of a sudden Andrew Luck was being picked first or Patrick Mahomes, and he said, hey, with that talent, don't draft him. And he fell to the 5th round and it was Mahomes' skill set, you're like, something's not right here. We're making a bigger deal blaming the owners for a guy dropped out of the 1st round. And in truth, I don't think many owners or general managers or head coaches, well, obviously none of them drafted him. I don't think collusion or not, he was getting drafted in the 1st round. But I still root for his success. Now that the draft part's over, now you just got to go ball out. And that's his next step to make an impact. So crazy stuff, right? There's so many sidebars, but the one is football starts after this preseason. Keep people healthy, get off the field. We got football September 4th, and we got college football tomorrow. So we'll hit the next week. I do want to talk about the Jim Harbaugh stuff because I wanted JB and I will talk about, he'll be back after vacation, about Urban Meyer talking to Jim Harbaugh. Once you've left college, he got, he was suspended there when Jim was at Michigan. But through all the stuff he did, can you really, as a college and NFL aren't on they're not sanctioned by the same group of governing body. They're not a minor league system. They're college, and well, inevitably it is a minor league system, but you know what I'm talking about. They're not a AAA affiliate for the Houston Astros or Boston Red Sox, where they're the feeder. College football is the overall feeder, but they're not governed by the same body of people. So why in the world, and it's kind of rich, and I like Urban Meyer as a coach, and he's a motivator. It's real rich for Urban Meyer to say some guy needs to get suspended when he's in the NFL, when Urban Meyer was one of the kings of, controversy surrounded him at a few places. But I'd still hire him as a head coach in college because the guy's one of the epic head coach. So we're going to dive into that deeper next week. The Harbaugh, Urban Meyer, Ohio State, Michigan, suspension, no suspension. But once the guy's gone, if you hit him with the fine wiser, you really going to tell me you're allowed to waltz in LA in the building and the college NFL say, hey man, we're gonna fine and suspend you because of what you did in college. If you're the Spanos family, anybody, your middle finger, what do you guys talk about? If you weren't smart enough to take care of it while he was there, then your dumbass ain't getting it while he's gone. Typical of NC2A stuff. Not that they're the ones who brought it up, but as much as Urban Meyer says it, and that's that constant banner, and it keeps you in, and Urban's a smart guy. But I'm not fining or suspending anybody that went from college to the pro, and I'm going to go retroactive on his ass and chase his ass down in the NFL. They're already suspended. Now, if we want to talk about the weak-ass suspension that the Michigan head coach is getting because of it, the current, well, okay, we can have that conversation. So we'll dive into that, but we'll come out of this preseason and we'll get a feel for cuts and all that and what's next, which is the regular season, and what we're in for. And now we get to start breaking down heavy divisions, not only the position, but the backup tight end that's going to make a team right now, how it all fits. It's kind of like post-draft for me. I had leading up to the draft, yeah, this guy's great, but you draft him now, I get to tell you how he fits. Same thing here. Preseason, that's fine. This guy's here, this guy's not. He's been good. It's preseason. Now we get to tell you what the impact of that player is going to be on that team and in matchups. And we'll do that all next week. You guys have a great one. I'm going to go there's going to be no golf because it's raining sideways here, but I'm going to go watch it, as I always do. You guys have a great week, and thanks for a great week. And thanks to guests this week of Chipper Jones, of Ed Werder, of Ricky Cobb, and Passion. The guest list will continue to grow. I held off on guests early on this show when we first started. Why? Because you got to establish who we are, and we did. And now the guests rolling, but one thing that will never lack, our passion and in-your-face authentic stuff. And you know what? We'll put our stuff up against anybody's in the country that's doing shows like this. And you guys are here to back that up, and we appreciate you. And you're why we do it. We love the banter. And we'll see you guys on Monday. Thanks to Triple E and to Laura behind the scenes, and our special guest today, the great Ed Werder, Hall of Famer, man, one of the best to ever cover it. You get an idea where the Cowboys are and what they're doing right now. It's pretty interesting. Can't wait to talk more about it. We'll look forward to it. You guys have a great weekend, and thank you. And yes, have a great weekend. And Skol Vikings. I still got a big place in my heart for the Vikings. Who are they going to be with a second-year quarterback that hadn't started a game? All that and more next week right here on Unpaved. And I'm Sean. We'll see you guys then.